hundreds of tons of drugs into the United States. If this was about something about the illegitimacy of Maduro's election, well, that's something that the U.S. is, decrying any other country policing. We just sanctioned Brazil for having tried to protect itself from a coup by its former president.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is letting it all out, and that means incriminating Donald Trump. Because the woman who was once his closest confidant is now happy to let us know all of his crimes. Which is exactly what Marjorie Taylor Greene did this morning in a scathing post that colors the civil war happening within MAGA so well, and also gives us a little insight into Marjorie Taylor Greene's interesting, to say the least, future, as her resignation from Congress is upon us. We're gonna get into it all, and why it has made Donald Trump so panicked. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button, because it goes a long way, and support reporting our work. Now, Marjorie's latest damning attack on Donald Trump, how she has incriminated him, has everything to do with what he did this morning, his illegal strike on Venezuela, and Rachel Maddow broke it down. The latest right here.
President Trump just pardoned the former president of Honduras, who was convicted of sending hundreds of tons of drugs into the United States. If this was about something about the illegitimacy of Maduro's election, well, that's something that the U.S. is, decrying any other country policing. We just sanctioned Brazil for having tried to protect itself from a coup by its former president, Jair Bolsonaro. I mean, if it's about gangs, we had the president of El Salvador, who is believed by U.S. law enforcement to be very linked with the notorious gang MS-13, which has caused incredible damage in the hemisphere, including in the United States. He's invited into the Oval Office, and the president says that he's looking forward to sending homegrown Americans to that president's essentially, jungle concentration camps. So all of the purported explanations for what's happened here don't stand up to logical scrutiny. The president has never articulated a coherent rationale for having done this. This seems like Marco Rubio's dream, not Donald Trump's dream. So I'll be very interested to hear what the president is able to piece together in terms of an articulable rationale for having done this. That said, he's done it. And so, in the immortal words of General Colin Powell, you break it, you own it. And it's one thing to do that on the other side of the world. It's another thing to do that so close to home here in our hemisphere. I don't know if they have any plan for what to do now that they have invaded, bombed, and removed the president of that country. But I'll be happy to hear an America First rationale for it, whatever it is.
And the administration kind of sort of laid a little bit of it out in its national security strategy that it came out with a little while ago. This whole concept, sort of a renewal of the Monroe Doctrine, that what happens in our hemisphere is our business and what happens elsewhere is someone else's business. That said, this is the interesting question. Donald Trump wanted to get rid of Maduro in his first term. Marco Rubio, as you said, is very determined to have gotten rid of Maduro and says that there's nothing else to happen now that they've got him. The question is what happens, because Venezuela is a tricky country, and we don't necessarily know what the plan is hereafter.
Exactly. I mean, the president in his remarks on Fox and Friends this morning, which is still just an astonishing choice by a president to have done this before he formally addresses the nation. He called into Fox and Friends and effused about how he felt like he was watching a television show when he was watching the feed of what was going on there, which is it's just disheartening to have a president who's that who has that kind of a mindset about these things. But he also said, essentially sort of ad-libbing, trying to explain why this was a good thing, that, in Venezuela, he was essentially a dictator, as if that was the justification for the United States going in there and physically removing the president of that country. I mean, nobody thinks that Maduro is a good guy or has a lot of confidence in the way that he was holding on to power. But again, the president of El Salvador calls himself, the world's coolest dictator, or whatever it is, that phrase is that he uses for himself. There's lots of countries around the world with de facto, arguable, or official dictatorships.
When I say there is no reasoning behind these strikes, sure, there is reasoning. Donald Trump is going to talk about oil. He's going to make a bad faith argument. Of course, Deep down, we know he wants to distract from the Epstein files. He wants to expand his authoritarian project. But really, there is no justifiable reason, and especially no justifiable reason for every supporter of Donald Trump's who believed they were getting no new wars. One of the worst lies told by his campaign in 2024, and they have gotten the opposite. And it is why Marjorie Taylor Greene is ripping Donald Trump to shreds in a post that just incriminates his latest criminal act and gives an important glimpse into what the future of MAGA looks like as everything is falling apart for Donald Trump. Marjorie Taylor Greene wrote on Twitter, "I've served on the Homeland Security Committee for the past 3 years. I'm 100% for strong, safe, secure borders and stopping narco-terrorists and cartels from trafficking deadly drugs and human trafficking into America." But she wrote, if US military action and regime change in Venezuela was really about saving American lives from deadly drugs, then why hasn't the Trump administration taken action against Mexican cartels? And if prosecuting narco-terrorists is a high priority, then why did Donald Trump pardon the former Honduran president who was convicted and sentenced for 45 years for trafficking hundreds of tons of cocaine into America? Ironically, cocaine is the same drug that Venezuela primarily traffics into the US. Americans discuss with our government's never-ending military aggression in support of foreign wars is justified because we are forced to pay for it. And both parties, Republicans and Democrats, always keep the Washington military machine funded and going. That is what many in MAGA thought they voted to end. Boy, were we wrong? Marjorie Taylor Greene, over the past couple of months, has seen things very clearly when it comes to where MAGA is going. And I know, and y'all know, that I don't like to give Marjorie Taylor Greene any credit. So I'm not really, but I'm very interested in what her future looks like, because it also kind of spells the end for Donald Trump, the beginning of what Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to be. A new MAGA movement must have Donald Trump out of it. And part of that is making the case, like she just did, of not only the criminality of these strikes, talking about why what Donald Trump is doing is a crime. He did it, didn't go to Congress. And even if he did, I wouldn't have wanted Congress to give some seal of approval. And I'm really worried of Democrats who I fear may say over and over again, oh, Donald Trump didn't go to Congress. Oh, this is illegal. You have to go to Congress first without saying that second. And honestly, I don't want to say most important, but it might be politically the most important part, which is we don't want forever wars. We don't want useless, never-ending bullshit, resource-draining country, destabilizing wars. We don't want to do that. We did that for decades. And it's true that Democrats and Republicans, certainly to different extent, engaged in that. We're part of that never-ending military machine that Marjorie Taylor Greene talks about now. Marjorie Taylor Greene is certainly not the first person to say that when Bernie Sanders said, "Hey, Elon, at the beginning of Donald Trump's administration, if you want to talk about bloated budgets, let's look at the Pentagon." You know, I was a little weary of Bernie ceding any ground on that to Elon. I don't think he did that much. But I don't think we should say, wow, Marjorie Taylor Greene is. So right now, Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying something that we have certainly said. These progressives have said for a long time. She's calling out Donald Trump's crimes. She's calling out how he's betrayed MAGA. But honestly, what's most important to me is that Marjorie Taylor Greene is on her way out, and she will have one job. Not that she ever did her job in Congress, so it didn't take up that much time, but she will have one job, which is to carve as many people out of Donald Trump's version of the MAGA movement as possible. Now, why does that matter as it relates to Donald Trump's illegal strikes? Well, to me, and like I said at the beginning of this video, there are so many different bad reasons and personal reasons for Donald Trump to be carrying out these strikes. But I think it's because he thinks more now than he ever has about his base. The base was always baked in for Donald Trump, right? It came with the car. This was something he could count on. Was his cult to fall in line, right? He fed them red meat. He'd do the Barack Hussein Obama. You know, he'd said, we're gonna lock up Hillary, whatever, Sleepy Joe, whatever you want to say. But he never had to win them over, right? He had from day one, and they fell in line. Sure, there were threats, right? There was intimidation, but that was usually of public officials. And Donald Trump also counted on his own stooges in the MAGA movement to do it as well. But Donald Trump never had to worry about his own supporters breaking with him, and there was no one really trying to outflank him on the MAGA side. Now that is completely changed. So to me, what Donald Trump is trying to do as a part of a laundry list of reasons why he wants to engage in a useless, unjustifiable, illegal, idiotic, incompetent, forever war for some reason. And he says, more strikes are coming. We know that Donald Trump at the beginning of his term was considering maybe trying to go to war with Mexico. Seems at this point, he just wants a war. And he just wants a war for so many reasons. But one, in my opinion, is that I think he believes the base will get behind him. Is that I think he believes that the same contingency of no new war and MAGA Republicans are a group of people that will take whatever slop justification that Donald Trump gives them and ultimately falls in line. And right now, that's oil. He's saying oil, oil, oil. Oil doesn't really make a lot of sense. There's not a clear or cogent or coherent argument there that Donald Trump has made. It is once again something that he has done at least well in communicating with his very dumb base, which is he just takes a word and says it, and those people repeat it without knowing necessarily the substance of what they're saying. You know, you ask a MAGA supporter, so why is Donald Trump doing this? And they'll say, you know, narco-terrorism is like, okay, why did he pardon a drug trafficker? They won't have a response for that. But they'll say, oh, the oil, oil, oil. Oil. And you ask, what do you mean by that? I guarantee you they won't have an answer. If you ask Donald Trump, what do you mean? He'll just go, well, quite frankly, the oil is so beautiful and we love it. And it's liquid gold. And I say, and I gold. And when we like gold and it's liquid and oil, and we're gonna take it, and they took it from us, so we're gonna take the took. And it's gonna be quite frankly, it's gonna be so great. And that's it. He's not gonna be making an argument about how cost of living is so important. And I think unleashing energy and so on. And he's tried to, he said, we're gonna get energy so low that food is gonna cost you nothing because all that matters is energy. And that hasn't worked. What argument is Donald Trump selling his MAGA supporters on? If he believes he can get them to completely switch up what they believe in a year's time, which wouldn't be the first occasion in which that's happened, what is the argument that he is presenting? Not like MAGA has to be convinced at some high academic level because they're such intellectual giants. It's not true. If you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you're stuck around at the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.